Hello, Ryan here, aka Mac, and welcome. Today I will be running through the Persistent Universe Monthly Report. As always, a huge thank you to all of my patrons and channel members. Thank you guys so much for all the support. It is truly appreciated, and if you do enjoy my videos, please consider subscribing and helping the channel to grow. So each month, CIG release a big report that details all the work that has been done over the past month. They do this for both Squadron 42 and the PU. The Squadron 42 report I have already covered, which I will link in the description below. And as usual, there is quite a lot to get through, so let us get started. So kicking off with the ship art team, they progressed with the MISC Hull A, which is a dedicated solo hauler, finalizing the cockpit and dashboard layout, the exterior lighting, and all of its component bays, plus a vis area pass was completed. For the RSI Scorpius, which is your two-man heavy sort of X-Wing fighter, most of its exterior is now final art complete, with significant effort into the component bays and other hatches that were needed across its hull. Its exterior and wings are progressing well and are now approaching final art. The Banu Merchantman, which is the large Banu trading vessel, is now approaching white box complete, which is quite amazing, with the team doing more in the white box phase due to the ship's size and complexity. I did have a bit of a feeling that this was going to be quite some time in white box, grey box and final art, well, throughout the whole pipeline, as it's such an important ship, not only just due to its popularity, but also because this ship is really establishing more of what the Banu are about and how they are and how they exist as an alien race in the verse. So the Drake Vulture moved through final art, lighting both the interior and exterior and finishing its wear and damage passes. Currently the team are closing out a level of details and cleaning up loose items in prep for release. Now this is the Drake solo salvaging vessel that should be still on track to release alongside the hand salvaging mechanic in Alpha 3.18. Here's hoping. The team also progressed with final art for the Drake Corsair's cockpit and mess hall. The Drake Corsair is a heavily armed exploration vessel. Currently they are working through solutions for adding chow line features, which is how the crew and players will go about feeding themselves while on board, as well as other ship items to the limited space in the mess hall. They also polished the walls, framework and canopy frame for the cockpit. And finally, it was mentioned that an unannounced vehicle made progress while another began its white box phase. No idea what these two are. Hopefully one is a refinery ship. That would be kind of cool. For the character art team, the artists wrapped up concepts for the Xenothreat and Headhunters gang outfits for Pyro. They also finished the concept for a backpack intended to work with the salvaging mechanics, and artists progressed with the Frontier style clothing for Pyro as well. I think this backpack might be somehow attached to maybe the dedicated Grey Cat salvaging tool rather than the multi-tool, allowing for more storage when you're scraping stuff off, but I don't know for certain, so we'll have to wait and find out. The animation team began the year fixing issues with the bartender and patrons, and I will say the bartender does appear to be working well now, plus creating the vendor behavior, with the first being the basic coffee vendor. And on that note, I can see the same sort of misunderstanding for the coffee vendor that happened when CIG set about releasing the bartender or started working on the bartender. Now CIG are working on the coffee vendor. It's not that they just suddenly thought one day that we really need a coffee vendor in the PU. It's expanding on the overall vendor behavior and the archetype that we saw introduced with the bartender, so bringing more life and functionality that will apply to all vendors in the verse, for all shops and traders that we find in the future. Anyway, I do digress. On the facial front, time was dedicated to creating facial animations for various usables, with the team saying, if you notice NPCs no longer giving you the 1,000-mile stare all the time, thank the facial team. And I will say it would be quite nice to get a little less robotic looking NPCs in the verse, so hopefully this can roll out ASAP. Another significant undertaking that is nearing completion is a full fidelity pass on the player animations used when grabbing something from the suit or putting it back, like a grenade from the chest slot or a med pen from a side pocket. They say there are a large number of poses to consider for the various interactions, and the team are currently reviewing the timings to hit that sweet spot of responsiveness and being fast enough without losing animation quality and readability. Now this is going to be really nice to see, not really adding much to the overall gameplay, but a visual quality of life improvement no doubt, that I personally will appreciate seeing. Now for the gameplay features team, they have continued working on ship-to-ship refueling, getting it ready for release, which we did get to see quite a nice look at on Inside Star Citizen recently, plus the last issues with the mining gadgets were attended to. Additional work on loot generation began that will allow NPCs to carry procedurally generated items in their pockets, and this also includes the ability for the mission feature team to control the items in NPCs' inventories. So I suppose this could mean the introduction of finding mission-related items in NPC inventories, which would be a nice touch, having to search them for maybe a key or a passcode or something. It also says here that the development of the engineering gameplay loop and life support kicked off. I am extremely happy to hear this. Last we officially heard was, I think last Halloween or maybe 2 Halloweens ago, that they were prototyping this resource generation and item control system, which is the system that allows all components on board of a ship to communicate and link together, providing each component with the necessities to function. Now the gold standard pass that we see on the ships at the moment, part of that is allocating physical locations for ship components within the ships, which will include a life support component for supplying the ship with things like oxygen. So it sounds like they are now at the stage where they can really begin working out the engineering mechanic, which is a mechanic that I am very excited to see come along. How much progress they can make in 1 year, I don't know. Will we be interacting with things this year? Hopefully, but I wouldn't expect it to be a, here's the engineering mechanic. It's more going to be, these components are in, you can interact with them. Maybe use a panel to allocate different paths for the resources to take using relay nodes. We will see how it rolls out. Now on to vehicle features. Alongside the Gravlev feature, which I do think they have done a great job with, by the way, I highly suggest even just renting a Dragonfly for the hell of it. The team also worked on jump points, restricted areas, and the transit system refactor. They also supported work on resource networks, exploring how to integrate the system into vehicles to improve how power, heat, and other resources work, which is all probably closely tied to what I just mentioned about engineering, as each component on board produces IR and EM and is part of the whole resource management on board your ship. So next up we have the AI content team, who completed their speed protocol pass on the arcade and vending machines. Now this is a term to describe the implementation of motion capture data in a fast but rough way to kind of give a first impression of what the final version will look like, which will allow them to verify if the speed, length and performance will deliver what's intended. The vending machine, as you would expect, is a food and drinks provider used by hungry and thirsty NPCs and hopefully players at the same time or someday soon after, and the current implementation provides a single fizzy drink option, but will rapidly expand to more consumables such as alcoholic drinks, noodles, soups and sandwiches, with the team saying, "We are pleased with the result, but the hardest part is keeping the AI looking realistic while waiting for the item to dispense. Next is to implement NPCs that steal from the machines, as well as frustrated NPCs that shake the machine if it fails to dispense. That'll be quite funny to watch." Now the arcade machines are reusable that the NPCs can interact with as part of their leisure activities, with the initial implementation allowing NPCs to play multiple rounds of a game before ending either victorious or with a game over, and as a result, this should reflect in their animations. Both of these machines passed the current sign-off stage and should move into implementation and polish phases. So yeah, I don't think this is maybe allowing the players to use them. I think it sounds more like just getting the NPCs to sort of start using them, and likely required for when they begin implementing the NPC scheduler, so that NPCs have this day-night cycle with their needs and their behaviors and characters coming out. Now for the AI tech team, they completed the first implementation of planetary navigation. Very excited to hear that, with the designers currently testing the feature in concrete use cases and providing feedback to improve usability. So as I say, very happy to hear this. I do wonder in which patch we will begin to see NPCs planet side, as this is a huge step forward. Now on the ship side, the team started working to enable NPC spaceships to land at random planetary locations, with the aim to allow players to request reinforcements, be rescued, or be given a lift somewhere. And again, this is great news, granting more abilities to NPCs who will be able to take on jobs to help players out when other players are not on hand to do so. It also means it could give some pirate players more targets when players are just flying away and trying to escape, at least giving the pirates the NPCs to take on and steal their ships or whatever. Now, the team also continued to bring the subsumption editor into the game engine, with designers now actively involved in using the tool. Work will continue for a few more sprints as the team remove blockers and prepare to move on to the next phase. For NPC locomotion, a plan to address the majority of existing issues was devised, like utilizing feature test maps to verify all location functionality. For example, automatically verifying NPC moving along paths, moving to destinations, moving and aiming, and moving and looking, so speeding up the whole bug fixing with NPC movement. They also split collision types between players and AI to enable proper collisions without characters getting stuck. Collision avoidance is a very complex topic, they say, and will be solved through many interconnected systems, including this one. The team also worked on simplifying the way that NPCs push objects around, like the trolleys, creating a consistent way for them to understand their state and intention. An inverted index data structure was implemented, which is necessary for implementing an efficient conversation search, with the goal to provide a way to correctly select appropriate conversations between multiple NPCs based on the topics that they want to talk about, their roles, locations, and more. Now, this means that NPCs will have a pretty vast choice of vocabulary and talk or react based on how they are generally feeling that day. So hopefully avoiding the usual gamey feel where they're saying things that make them seem extremely happy and everything's okay, even though, say, bombs are dropping or they're being attacked and their face is looking like they're screaming. Basically making more sense to each NPC's conversation and state of being, which will be interesting to see unfold. So onto the engine team, and a big shout out to my techie friend for writing this up for me, helping me to understand it, but more importantly, helping me to explain it to you guys so that you can understand more of what the engine team is doing. So thank you to him for all of the help. Now, the physics team, they prepared for the configuration and setup of sim and cloth skins via item ports. Furthermore, code was restructured to allow mesh baking on soft body instances with the animation system. For vehicles, anti-flip measures were implemented for turtling vehicles using physics movement. The vehicle inspector tool that's used for development now also allows the team to control stiffness properties, and for the renderer, further progress was made on the Gen 12 transition, with lots of work being done. For example, various instance buffers are now pre-created to prevent slowdowns at runtime. So for example, if the game is rendering a whole planet and thousands of trees, it'll choke, causing a lot of stutters. This will hold that data of that instance for when that frame needs to be drawn in, and it'll pull that from the buffer, meaning less, if any, slowdowns at runtime for the client, which will be a great improvement. Additionally, various optimizations for the reference counting of PSO cache instances, or pipeline state object cache instances, during rendering were committed, which is to stop the stuttering when you first load into the game or when you get in for the first few moments and everything sort of takes a while to catch up and your game is sort of lagging behind. In regards to atmosphere and cloud rendering, last month's code cleanup for back integration was completed and the latest code was submitted to the main dev branch. So very nice. Hopefully we will see some visual and performance improvements for the next patch when it comes to clouds and atmosphere. They say the adoption of volumetric clouds in Squadron 42 revealed an issue with parameters passing into relevant systems during level loading, which was fixed, and the next steps are looking at another new idea for data reprojection and to start porting code to Gen 12. On the core systems, the team refactored the recently introduced Arena Allocator into a Buddy Allocator. The Entity Component Update Scheduler, or ECUS, visibility culling was improved, and the old ECUS code was removed now that the new entity-centric component update code is actively used. Furthermore, the job manager's wake-up code was further optimized, and finally, part of the team is currently working on area and tag refactoring, as well as continuing to investigate a potential integration of EASTL, or EASTL, ITL. Now this is all memory and performance related, with the Arena Allocator tool being used to assign objects to specific regions, so optimizing is the best that it can be, which was not possible with the old renderer, but with the Gen 12 renderer it is, and means that the Gen 12 renderer will have great optimizations. Now for the lighting team, they begun the year making headway into the performance optimizations planned for all landing zones. This time they are focusing on the main domes of New Babbage, simplifying lighting setups where possible. So very nice to hear that they are actively looking into more ways to improve performance around landing zones, as these, as we know, are where we get the lowest FPS in the whole verse. For the location team, the Montreal-based location team started the year polishing and debugging derelict crash sites. They also wrapped up their work on the upcoming hospital locations like Maria Pure of Heart, adding variations to the space clinics, and finishing the Levski clinic so that it's ready to ship once the location is available. Part of the team has since moved on to pre-production and proof of concept for Derelicts V2, and as you can see here with this Derelict Reclaimer, it is nice to see that these wrecks are already in engine and underway. For the Montreal Tools team, they completed their Mighty Bridge tool, which is the integration of Houdini into the editor. Now this will allow various teams to use Houdini to create new tools that will help content creation across development. For example, using it to develop the procedural location creation tool alongside solutions that will be used for derelicts and other locations. So to me it sounds like all of these are maybe for points of interest and planetside locations, getting them hooked into the procedural tool to help maybe populate many planets and moons quicker with all manner of content while maintaining the overall quality level. For the narrative team, they started the year writing scripts for new mission types in anticipation for an upcoming motion capture session. The team also recorded new announcement sets to improve the ambient life across several upcoming locations. And finally, additional lore was required for Lorville's environmental set dressing. Now on to Tony Zurovec's team, the Systemic Services and Tools team. They started out the year working on various internal tools, including a visualizer for certain parts of the simulation. Work was also done to make older internal tools easier to access through copy build, and development on automation and scheduling for dynamic events began that will be used when manual activation isn't appropriate. Development of the various services from last year was completed, while direct connection work was done to help alleviate certain bottlenecks in the back end. And finally, support for the selling feature is still underway, with the team working closely with gameplay teams on the final elements. Oh, it's going to be good being able to sell all of our crap back to the shops. The tech animation team spent the first month addressing long-standing issues and upgrading all the team members to the latest version of Maya. For the UI team, they started transferring ownership of some UI features to the Squadron 42 feature team to fast-track their development. For refueling gameplay, polishing was done on the MISC Starfarer's screens and support was given to address outstanding issues. Very much looking forward to the refueling gameplay in 3.17. Work on the star map continued with progress made on concepts, prototyping and core tech. Hopefully we might get to see the star map or the updated star map on an upcoming Inside Star Citizen. That would be nice. The team continued building the core systems for the new AR markers while working on icons for the various marker types and states. And like many teams, they continued to update features to support persistent streaming and worked with the persistent tech team to ensure that they were on schedule. Extremely happy to hear that the persistent tech teams are still on schedule. Hopefully this could mean server meshing is still expected for Q3, Q4 this year. Now the team continued developing additional building blocks features, some of which will be used in the hacking feature. Additional planning went into the pre-production process of the new building blocks editor as well, which involved creating wireframes. And finally for UI, additional concepts for the new Mobiglass and Origin UI styles were created and iterated on. Now for the vehicle tech team, tasks were completed for the upcoming radar and scanning improvements, which will make it easier and more fun to locate and find various entities across space, including receiving better feedback results for the scanner operator. So this sounds interesting. Now the idea that it might be more of its own dedicated station is cool, and having information fed back to maybe decipher in some way. It'll be great to see progress on this and hopefully allocating a new role for someone on board of a ship. bringing more multi-crew in. Finally, they say major work on future door and connected components progressed, which will create a unified system of items that are more easily implemented by designers and artists, with the team saying this is particularly important as some of our vehicles were created using some legacy systems that don't always work well with the concept of the room system or portals. And as our ships are essentially flying superstructures of connected rooms and spaces, the need to optimize this system has become quite evident. No one wants a door control panel to become inoperable or to get stuck in an entrance elevator. Now this is pretty much music to my ears. Firstly, hearing about the work on engineering and how all the ship's components share their resources is getting attention now. And then this, so all doors, ramps, elevators, maybe lights as well and so on, are all becoming unified and set up, meaning all the ships will slowly become more usable, less problematic, and I'm very happy that this stuff is finally getting the attention that it needs. Now, visual effects teams started the year with a full pass on the Consolidated Outland Hover Quad, taking the opportunity to work on improvements to the wake effects for all hover vehicles. As this requires code changes from both VFX and vehicle programming teams, it will be rolled out in a future release. They also continue to work on effects for the salvaging tool, moving it into the production phase, so plenty of time to get this salvaging tool created and tested before release in 3.18, I'm sure. Finally, the team cleaned up some of the older particle libraries that are currently used in several locations, such as derelict ships, which include converting several particle lighting from the CPU to the GPU, which gives performance benefits but also allows the artists to make visual improvements where necessary. So that is the monthly report for the Persistent Universe. Some great work coming along there. So much is happening now and so much is underway now as well. It is only a matter of time before all of this stuff starts rolling out now that a lot of this core tech is being finished. But with that said, please do consider subscribing and helping the channel to grow. Also, come and hang out over at twitch.tv/supermacbrothers. You are all more than welcome. Hit the thumbs up if you don't mind. It does do the channel a big favor, and tick that notification bell if you would like to be notified when my videos go live. Again, huge thank you to my patrons and channel members. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.